Tiwa was dancing beautifully, surrounded by friends and family. Today was her traditional wedding, the day she would be handed over to her husband. But just as the music got louder, her best friend Emma stepped out of the crowd, smiling, dancing towards her, and then she slapped her. Not once, not twice. Before anyone could react, she grabbed Tiwa and started beating her like a woman possessed. And what she said next turned the entire wedding into chaos. This is African folktales with Nsinem. Bring your drinks and snacks, because this story, it only gets juicier. Before the most dramatic wedding entrance ever, Tiwa and Emma were best of friends, two peas in a pod, Bonnie and Clyde, you get the gist. They did everything together, shared everything, or at least that's what Tiwa thought, until Ben came into the picture. Ben was that guy, good-looking, brilliant, calm, and completely obsessed with Emma. This was the kind of man that would catch a grenade for you, no questions asked. In fact, Ben would gladly go hungry just to make sure Emma had everything she wanted. And the worst part, Emma knew it and she used it. Ben wasn't always like that. He used to be the rich kid, born with a diamond spoon, until life snatched it away and replaced it with not even a wooden spoon, a spatula. His parents died in a plane crash and everything his father owned was swallowed by debt. The banks took it all. Ben was left with nothing but his name and was sent back to the village to live with his grandmother. But Ben wasn't weak. He didn't sit around crying about his situation. He worked hard, got scholarships, pushed himself because he had something to prove. And somewhere in the middle of all that struggle came Emma. To Ben, she felt like light, like hope, like something good in a life that had gone completely dark. But what Ben didn't know was that even the sun can burn. Because Emma was not just a lover, she was a planner. An expensive babe was an understatement. This girl had standards, and they were not cheap. Clothes, wigs, phones, money. And Ben, he delivered, doing odd jobs, pushing himself to the limit just to keep her happy. But Emma wasn't thinking small, not at all. After Ben graduated, she dropped the next bump. She wanted to study medicine. Not in Nigeria, not anywhere close. Emma looked Ben in the eye and said she wanted a university in the United States. And Ben didn't even hesitate. Because he thought he was investing in their future. He thought he was building a life with the woman he loved. He had no idea that he was just a stepping stone. And the most dangerous part? Tiwa was watching everything, quietly, smiling, acting like the supportive best friend. But deep down, something had already started to shift. Something that would eventually lead to that slap, to that chaos, to that wedding that no one would ever forget. You see, Emma thought she was the hunter, using Ben as her bait to catch a life in America. But she forgot one thing. While the hunter is looking at the prey, the leopard is looking at the hunter. And Tiwa was the leopard in a lace aswebi. Ben told his grandmother, Nora, about his desire to sponsor his wife to be in school. When he told her about his desire to pay for it, Nora dissolved into laughter. She laughed so loud and so hard. But immediately he told his grandmother that he wanted to sell the palm plantation, her laughter ceased. She warned sternly to never bring up the discussion of selling his only inheritance. To drive home the point, Nora visited Emma at her father's house. She warned Emma to stop mounting pressure on her grandson. Tiwa, who was seated beside her friend, tried to pacify Ben's grandmother, while her friend looked unbothered. After Nora had gone, Tiwa tried to reason with her friend. Emma, you know Ben just graduated. Allow him settle first. Then he can sponsor your education. Better still, both of you can get married before you leave. That way, his granny would not feel like you're using her grandchild. Emma didn't even act like Tiwa had just said anything reasonable. Like I care what that old woman thinks of me, Emma said, as she focused her attention on her phone. Tiwa knew her friend could be unfeeling and mean, but she was yet to understand the extent. A year after, Ben and Tiwa traveled with Emma to Lagos to bid her farewell as she boarded her flight to America. But at the village, trouble was brewing. Binta, the village gossip, didn't knock. She pushed the gate open and stepped into Nora's compound like a woman carrying fire in her mouth. Nora, Ben's grandmother, sat outside, a tray of dried pepper balanced on her lap, her glasses slipping down her nose as she worked. Without looking up, she spoke. Binta, if you have come to sell gossip this morning, I don't have money to buy. Binta let out a dry laugh. Ah, Nora, if only it was gossip. That was enough to make Nora pause. Slowly, she lifted her head. There was something in Binta's face, something urgent.
Something wrong. What is it? Nora asked, her voice tightening. Binta didn't sit. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. I just came from the other side of the village, and what I had there, she shook her head, clicking her tongue. It is not good. Nora's finger stilled over the tray. Binta, speak clearly. What has happened? Binta looked her straight in the eye. Your grandson, Ben. Nora immediately sat up. Binta told Nora that the news was all of the village, that Ben had sold the plantation. Which plantation? Nora asked. Binta didn't smile. The palm plantation, Nora, the one his grandfather left behind. The smile on Nora's face faded. The tray fell from her lap. Dried peppers scattered across the ground. Her chest rose sharply once, twice, and then she collapsed. Binta screamed, Nora! Nora! She rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders, shaking her lightly. But Nora didn't respond. Her body lay still, too still. Nora suffered a heart attack. By the time Ben returned from Lagos, his grandmother was gone. Just like that. No goodbye, no closure, just silence. And from that moment, nothing in Ben's life remained the same. The guilt sat on his chest like a heavy stone, day and night. He blamed himself for the money, for the decision, for her death.
Meanwhile, life in America was moving on. Emma was thriving. School, new life, new exposure, new standards. At first, they still talked. Calls, messages, promises. But slowly, something began to change. One night, after hours of staring at his phone, going back and forth in his mind, Ben finally gave in. He called Emma. He spoke like a man trying not to lose the last thing he believed he still had. He told her he had been thinking about them, about everything they had been through, about the future he still hoped they could build together. Then he said it. He asked her to come back, not just to visit, but to come back so that they could do things properly, to get married so that he could join her there, to make everything they had sacrificed mean something. He told her he didn't want to lose her, not after losing so much already. For a moment, there was silence on the other end. But it wasn't the kind of silence that comforts you. It was the kind that warns you. When Emma finally spoke, something in her tone had changed. There was distance in it, detachment. She questioned him calmly at first, asking what exactly he meant by coming back, as if the idea itself didn't make sense to her anymore. Ben tried to explain. He reminded her of them, of their future, of everything he believed they were still building. But Emma had moved on in a way he hadn't realized. She told him she was just getting her life together, that she wasn't about to come back and tie herself down. Not now, not when things were finally beginning to fall into place for her. That word hit him. Tie herself down. Ben repeated it quietly, almost like he didn't understand how love had suddenly become a burden in her eyes. But Emma didn't soften. Instead, she began to talk about her plans, bigger plans. She mentioned that she was about to specialize in cosmetic surgery, and not casually either. She spoke about it with ambition, with hunger, with a clear focus on the kind of money and lifestyle it would bring. Ben, still holding on to a different idea of purpose, tried to gently guide her. He suggested other paths, pediatrics, gynecology, fields he believed were more meaningful, more grounded. That was where everything broke. Because the moment those words left his mouth, something in Emma snapped. To her, it sounded like limitation, like small thinking, like everything she had fought to escape. Her response came sharp, defensive, almost angry. She reminded him of everything she had gone through and questioned why, after all that, he would expect her to settle for what she now saw as less. To Ben, it wasn't about less, but to Emma, it was. And that difference, that gap in perspective, became impossible to ignore. For the first time, Ben truly felt it. The distance between who they used to be and who they had become. So he asked the question that had been sitting in his chest the entire time. Where did he fit into all of this? And that was when Emma said the words that would stay with him long after the call ended. He didn't. Not right now. She wasn't ready to settle. She wasn't ready to carry responsibility. She wasn't ready to slow down her life for anyone. And when Ben, already breaking, asked softly if by responsibility she meant him, she didn't hesitate. She called him a burden. Just like that. No pause, no regret, no attempt to soften the blow. For a moment, Ben couldn't even respond. His throat tightened, his chest felt heavy. Everything he had done, everything he had given, everything he had believed, reduced to that one word, burden. When he finally found his voice, it carried pain, real pain. He asked her how she could see him that way after everything. But Emma didn't take responsibility for any of it. She reminded him that he had made his own choices, that nobody forced him to sacrifice anything, that everything he did, he chose to do. And in that moment, Ben understood something he had refused to accept for a long time. Whatever they had, it didn't mean the same thing to her anymore, if it ever truly did. So when he asked quietly if that was it, Emma gave him his answer. It was. The call ended there. Cold, sharp, final. And from that moment on, Ben tried. He apologized, he reached out, he explained, he held on to hope longer than he probably should have, but nothing he did moved her. And Tiwa was watching everything. She saw the way Ben was breaking, the sleepless nights, the silence, the guilt, until one day she couldn't take it anymore.
She pushed him to talk, and when he finally did, when she heard the full story, Tiwa was shocked because to her, what Ben said wasn't even wrong. So she did something that would change everything. Tiwa picked up her phone and called Ima. It wasn't anger that pushed her this time. It was worry, the kind that grows quietly when you watch someone you care about slowly fall apart and you don't know how to stop it. She paced the room as the line rang, her heart already unsettled. When Ima finally picked, her voice came flat and distant, like she was answering a stranger. There was no warmth, no familiarity, nothing that reminded Tiwa of the friendship they once shared.
Tiwa tried to speak carefully. She told Emma she had just spoken to Ben and that something wasn't right, that he was breaking and it wasn't something that could be ignored. But the moment Ben's name came up, the atmosphere shifted. Emma's responses became clipped, defensive, as though the mere mention of him was an inconvenience. Tiwa tried to appeal to her emotions, reminding her of everything Ben had done, everything he had sacrificed. But Emma refused to accept the framing. To her, Ben had made his own choices. No one forced him, no one owed him anything. That was the line that changed everything. Because for Tiwa, it was never about blame. It was about care, about humanity, about not discarding someone who had given so much of himself. But Emma didn't see it that way anymore. When Tiwa brought up love, Emma dismissed it completely, like it was something childish, something outdated, something that had no place in the life she was building. To her, she was not abandoning anyone. She was choosing herself. And that was final. Tiwa tried again, softer this time. She pleaded for her to at least think about Ben, to not shut the door so completely. But Emma was already done with the conversation in her mind. Her patience was gone, her tone hardened further. It felt less like a discussion and more like a boundary being drawn. And then Emma ended the call. Silence filled the room. Tiwa stood there for a long moment, still holding the phone to her ear, as if waiting for the call to somehow continue. When it didn't, she exhaled shakily and dialed again. This time, Emma answered almost immediately, and there was no restraint left. Her irritation spilled through the phone. She accused Tiwa of turning Ben's situation into a personal mission, of refusing to accept reality, of not letting go.
Just hear me out, Tiwa pleaded. You know Ben too well. You know his heart. You know what he's been through. Losing his parents, losing his grandmother, all of it. And you were the only thing he held on to. Don't take that away from him too. There was a pause. Then Emma laughed. Wow, she said slowly. So this is what it has turned into, Emma said. You've now become his spokesperson, Emma asked Tiwa. Or is there something else I should know? Emma added. What are you saying? Tiwa asked Emma, shocked at the accusation. Because the way you are crying over this man, Tiwa continued, her voice rising slightly, you would think you are the one in love with him. Tiwa's breath caught. That's not fair. Then stop acting like it, Emma snapped. I've told you I'm not interested. I'm not coming back. I'm not marrying him. What part of that is so hard for you to understand? Emma screamed. I just don't want you to regret this, Tiwa advised. That did it. Emma exploded. Then you marry him, she shouted. Since you care so much, go and marry Ben and leave me alone. The words rang through Tiwa's ears, loud, sharp, final. And stop calling me about this nonsense, Emma added coldly. I have better things to focus on. The line went dead. This time, Tiwa didn't call back. A few days later, just as the sun was beginning to set, there was a knock on Tiwa's door. Tiwa opened it and her heart dropped. Ben stood there. But this was not the Ben she knew. His eyes were sunken. His clothes hung loosely on him. He looked empty. "Ben," she said softly. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tiwa, please, can I come in?" She stepped aside immediately. "Of course." He walked in slowly, like every step was a struggle. For a moment, he just stood there, not knowing where to begin. Then he finally spoke. "I don't know what else to do," he said, his voice low and tired. "I've tried everything. She's not picking my calls. She's not replying my messages. It's like I don't even exist to her anymore." Tiwa's chest tightened. "Sit down," she said gently, guiding him to a chair. Ben sat, his hands clasped together, trembling slightly. Maybe if you talk to her again, she listens to you. She might hear you out." Tiwa hesitated. The memory of that last call was still fresh, still sharp. But when she looked at him, she couldn't say no. "I'll try," she said softly. "I promise I'll try again." Ben nodded slowly, like that was the only thread of hope he had left. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then Tiwa spoke, her voice warm, steady. "Ben, you need to take care of yourself too." He let out a hollow laugh. "What's the point?" Tiwa moved closer. "The point is you," she said firmly. "You're still here. Your life didn't end because one person walked away." Ben looked at her, his eyes glassy. "It feels like it did." Tiwa's heart ached. She reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You are stronger than this," she said softly. "You've survived worse." Ben opened his mouth to respond, but the words never came. His face suddenly tightened. His breathing changed. "Ben?" Tiwa's voice sharpened. He tried to stand, but his legs gave way, and the next second he collapsed. "Ben!" Tiwa screamed, rushing forward. Her hands shook as she tried to lift him. "Ben, open your eyes!" But he was unresponsive. Panic took over. Neighbors rushed in at the sound of her voice. Within minutes, they were on their way to the hospital. The doctor's face was serious when he came out. "His blood pressure is dangerously high," he said. "Severe stress, emotional strain. If he had come in any later, it could have been much worse." Tiwa felt her knees weaken. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked, her voice barely steady. The doctor nodded slowly. "He will, but he needs rest, proper care, no stress." From that day, Tiwa didn't leave him alone. She started going to his house every day, cooking, cleaning, washing his clothes, making sure he ate, making sure he took his medication. At first, Ben barely spoke. He moved like a shadow of himself, quiet, distant. But slowly, something began to change. A little more food each day, a few more words, a faint smile here and there. Life was returning. Not fully, not yet, but enough to see. One evening, as they sat outside, the air calm and quiet, Tiwa watched him carefully. "Ben," she said gently, "you can't stay like this forever." He sighed. "I know." She leaned forward slightly. "You need to start again." He looked at her. "How?" Tiwa hesitated for a moment, then said it. "Go back to the plantation." Ben froze. "What?" "The plantation," she repeated. "Go and meet the new owners. Ask them to employ you. At least it's something. At least it gives you a place to start." Ben stared at her, something unreadable crossing his face. "Tiwa," he said slowly, "who told you I sold the plantation?" Tiwa blinked. What? I didn't sell it, he said quietly. Tiwa frowned. But everyone said, I leased it, Ben cut in. Long-time lease, not a sale. The words hung in the air. Tiwa stared at him, stunned. Wait, you mean? Ben nodded slowly. The land is still mine. Silence, heavy, shocking. Tiwa's mouth fell open slightly. Then, all those rumors. People assumed, Ben said bitterly, and I didn't have the strength to correct anyone. Tiwa shook her head slowly, trying to process it. So, your grandmother? Her voice trailed off. Ben looked away, pain flashing across his face. She believed the same thing. That realization hit differently, harder, deeper. Tiwa's chest tightened. Ben, she whispered. But for the first time in a long while, something else flickered in Ben's eyes. Not just pain, not just guilt, something else. Possibility. And maybe, just maybe, a second chance. Ben took her advice. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, he stood at the edge of the plantation. The same land that had carried his family's name, the same land that almost destroyed him. For a moment, he just stood there. Then he walked in. The workers recognized him immediately. There was murmuring, side glances, but Ben didn't care. He walked straight to the manager, introduced himself properly, and asked to work, not as an owner, as a worker. And that was how it started. The work was hard, brutal even. Under the scorching sun, his hands blistered, his back ached, his body screamed. But for the first time in a long time, Ben felt something close to peace. Because every drop of sweat felt like penance, like healing. And through it all, Tiwa stayed. She came in the morning sometimes, bringing food, hot, fresh, made with care. Other days she came in the evenings, cleaning his small space, washing his clothes, making sure he took his medication. She didn't say much, she just showed up. And slowly, Ben began to live again.
His laughter came back first, small, rare, but real. Then his strength, then his voice, until one evening, everything changed. The air was different that day, heavy, quiet, almost like the world itself was holding its breath. Tiwa stood in his small kitchen space, stirring the pot gently. Ben leaned against the doorway, watching her, not casually, not absent-mindedly, but deeply, like he was seeing her for the first time. The way her hands moved, the way she hummed softly under her breath, the way she cared without asking for anything in return. Tiwa, he called quietly. She turned. Their eyes met, and something shifted. The silence stretched, longer than it should have. He took a step closer, then another. Tiwa didn't move, didn't speak, didn't look away. They were too close now, close enough to feel each other's breath, close enough to hear each other's heartbeat. Ben's voice dropped. Why are you doing all this for me? Tiwa swallowed slightly. I don't know, she whispered, but that wasn't true, and they both knew it. His hand lifted slowly, almost like he was asking for permission, and for a second, just 1 second, it felt like the world had stopped. Then Tiwa stepped back quickly, like she had just woken up from something dangerous. This is wrong, she said, her voice shaking. Ben froze. Tiwa, no, she cut in, already reaching for her bag. We can't. We shouldn't. And before he could say anything else, she walked out. That was the last time he saw her. For days, she didn't come back, didn't call, didn't send a message. Nothing. Ben called her. Once, twice, 10 times. No answer. At first, he told himself it was nothing. She just needed space. But as the days stretched on, something started to settle in his chest. Heavy, uncomfortable. He missed her. Not just her presence, not just the food, not just the care. He missed her. The way she spoke, the way she listened, the way she understood him, without him having to explain. And slowly, quietly, it dawned on him. He had fallen for Tiwa. The realization didn't come with excitement, it came with fear, because nothing about it felt simple or right. He sat outside one evening after work, staring into the distance, his thoughts louder than anything around him. How did I get here? He muttered to himself. He used to love Emma deeply, completely, and Tiwa was her best friend. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. What kind of man does that? He whispered. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. Maybe I'm just broken, he said under his breath. Because how do you explain it? How do you justify it? The same woman who stood by you when you were at your lowest, the same woman who picked up your pieces, is the one you're not supposed to want. And even if he ignored all that, there was another truth.
Tiwa deserved better. Better than a man still recovering. Better than a man with nothing. Better than a man working on a farm, trying to rebuild his life from scratch. What do I even have to offer her? He asked quietly. Nothing. That was the answer. And yet, his heart refused to listen. So now he was stuck between what he felt and what he believed was right. Should he tell her and risk losing her completely, or keep quiet and watch her slowly slip away? He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly, conflicted, torn, afraid. And now, let me ask you, is Ben wrong for falling in love with Tiwa? Should he even think about asking out his ex's best friend? Or should he bury his feelings and walk away? Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you are enjoying this story, do give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. I share intriguing African tales that are sure to keep you at the edge of your seats. Back to the story. What am I doing? He said to himself. Waiting, hiding, doubting? For what? Another chance to lose her? No, not this time. The next morning, Ben made a decision. He was going after Tiwa. By the time he got to her house, his heart was pounding like a drum in his chest. His steps slowed as he approached the compound. Then he saw her. Tiwa was standing at the veranda, but she wasn't alone. A young man stood in front of her, well-dressed, confident, smiling. And Tiwa was smiling too. In her hands was a bouquet of flowers, fresh, beautiful. It was given to her. Ben froze. Everything inside him went still. The laughter, the ease between them, the way she looked at the man, it hit him all at once. Too late. His chest tightened painfully. Without thinking, he turned, quietly, quickly, and walked away. He didn't want her to see him like that. Didn't want to interrupt whatever that moment was. Didn't want to hear words that would finish what was already breaking inside him. He got home and shut the door behind him, then leaned against it, breathing hard. I waited too long. The realization sank deep, heavy, unforgiving. All those days, all those chances, all the times he could have spoken, and he said nothing. He ran his hands over his face. I had her, he whispered, right there, and I let fear take her away. His chest tightened again, worse this time. What did I expect? He said bitterly. That she would just sit around, waiting for me forever? He let out a hollow laugh, painful, broken.
You really messed this up, Ben. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, then a knock. Ben frowned slightly, wiping his face quickly. He pushed himself off the door. Another knock, softer this time. He walked slowly toward the door. His mind wasn't even there. He opened it and froze. Tiwa, standing right in front of him. For a moment, neither of them spoke, just silence, and everything they had been running from, standing right there between them. Tiwa was the first to speak. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it.
Something unsettled. "Why did you come to my house?" she asked. Ben swallowed but said nothing. She took a step closer. "And why did you leave without talking to me?" Silence. Ben stepped aside slowly and opened the door wider, gesturing gently. "Come in." Tiwa hesitated for a brief second. Then she walked in. He closed the door behind her. They both sat down. Not too close, not too far. Just enough space to feel the tension sitting between them. Ben exhaled slowly, running his hands together. "I came to see you," he said finally. "But when I got there, I saw you had a guest." He paused. "I didn't want to interrupt." Tiwa held his gaze. "So you just left?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I thought maybe I was too late." Something flickered across Tiwa's face, but she didn't speak. Ben looked down for a moment, gathering courage. Then he lifted his head again. "But even if I am," he continued, his voice heavier now. Tiwa's heart began to beat faster. "Ben, please," he said softly. "Just let me finish." She went quiet. Ben inhaled deeply. "I love you." The words hung in the air, raw, honest, unfiltered. "I've been trying to ignore it, fight it, bury it," he continued. "But it's not going away. It's getting worse." His voice cracked slightly. "It's eating me up." Tiwa's fingers tightened around each other in her lap. Ben shook his head lightly. "I was afraid to say anything," he admitted. "Because of Emma. Because you were her best friend. I kept telling myself you would never look at me that way." He let out a small, bitter laugh. "And even if you did, what do I even have to offer you?" His eyes met hers again. "I'm just a man trying to rebuild his life, working on a farm, starting from nothing." His voice softened. "You deserve better than that." Silence filled the room again, but this time it was heavier. Tiwa didn't interrupt. She didn't react immediately. She just sat there, listening, taking it all in. Every word, every emotion, every truth he had just laid bare in front of her. Then slowly, she stood up. Ben's heart dropped instantly. "Tiwa," he called softly. But she didn't respond. She didn't look back. She just walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside. And just like that, she left. Ben sat there, frozen, the silence louder than anything he had ever heard. And now, let me ask you, is Tiwa wrong if she decides to be with Ben? Should she even consider dating her best friend's ex? Or is that a line that should never be crossed? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. For weeks, Tiwa disappeared. Then weeks turned into months. Ben called. At first every day. Then every other day. Then less. Because each time it was the same thing. No answer. He went to her house more than once, but each time he was told the same thing.
"She's not around." Or worse, she said she doesn't want to see you. At some point, he stopped going, but he never stopped thinking about her. Nights were the hardest because that was when everything came rushing back. Her voice,
her eyes, the way she walked out of his house without saying a word. Maybe that was my answer, he would whisper to himself. And slowly, he started to accept it. Until one evening, there was a knock on his door. Ben almost didn't get up. He wasn't expecting anyone. But the knock came again, soft, familiar. He opened the door, and his breath caught. Tiwa. For a moment, he just stared at her, like if he blinked, she might disappear again. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Ben stepped aside immediately. Yes, come in." She walked in slowly. The same space, the same chairs, but everything felt different. They sat down. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full, heavy, waiting. Tiwa took a deep breath. "I've been avoiding you," she said. Ben let out a small, dry laugh. "I noticed." She nodded slightly.
"It wasn't because I didn't care," he looked at her. Then she continued. "It was because I cared too much. That made him still." "I needed time," she said softly. "Time to understand what I was feeling and what it meant." She paused, then looked at him fully. "Because the truth is," her voice dropped slightly, "I've always liked you." Ben blinked, like he wasn't sure he heard correctly. "Even when you were with Emma," she continued, "I knew you were off limits. I respected that." A small, bittersweet smile touched her lips. "I was okay just watching from afar." Ben's chest tightened. "The way you treated her," she went on, "your kindness, your loyalty, the way you carried responsibility like it was nothing." She shook her head slightly. "I admired you, quietly." Ben didn't move, didn't speak. But when she left, Tiwa continued, her voice tinged with pain. She looked away briefly. "That was when everything changed for me." Silence. "I tried to move on," she admitted. "Men came, good men, serious men." She let out a small breath. "But my heart," she shook her head slowly, "my heart refused." Her eyes met his again.
"It kept coming back to you." Ben's vision blurred. He didn't even realize when the tears started falling. "All this time," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. Tiwa nodded. "All this time." Something inside him broke open. All the fear, all the doubt, all the pain he had been carrying, it melted. He stood up slowly, walked toward her, and pulled her into his arms. Tiwa didn't resist. She melted into him like she had been waiting for that moment too. They held each other, tight, like letting go wasn't an option anymore. Everything they had been holding back, every emotion, every unspoken word spilled over. And that night, the distance between them finally disappeared. Not just in words, but in the way they stayed close. The way silence spoke for them. The way two hearts, tired of fighting, finally chose each other. And for the first time in a long time, Ben felt whole again. But while the two lovebirds celebrated their love, trouble was brewing. One day, Ben was at the plantation, seated in his office, going through the accounts on his laptop. His face was serious, focused, trying to make sense of numbers that never seemed to balance the way he wanted. Then one of the security men hurried toward him. "Oga Ben, they are calling you at the gate. Somebody important is asking for you." Ben frowned slightly. "Important?" The man nodded. "Very important." Ben closed his laptop slowly. Something about the way the man said it made his chest tighten a little, but he stood up anyway.
As he walked toward the gate, he muttered under his breath, "Well, he that is down fears no fall." When he got there, he paused. The man standing at the gate didn't look like anyone from around. He was older, well-dressed, not just well-dressed, expensively dressed. The kind of man whose shoes alone could feed a family for months. His posture, his calm, everything about him screamed money, serious money. The man studied Ben briefly, then gave a small nod. "Ben?" "Yes," Ben replied cautiously. The man glanced around. "Can we talk somewhere more private?" Ben hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Follow me." As they walked back to his house, Ben's mind was already racing. Who is this man? What does he want? Did I owe somebody money I don't know about? By the time they got inside, Ben gestured for him to sit.
The man's bodyguard remained outside, standing like a statue. Inside, the man adjusted his suit slightly and looked at Ben properly. "My name is Mr. Adeyemi," he said calmly. "I was your father's friend and his business partner." Ben blinked. His father? The man's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry about your parents," he continued. "Their passing was tragic." Ben swallowed. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I would have come earlier," the man added, "but circumstances beyond my control kept me away." Ben nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. Then the man leaned forward slightly. "Your father made an investment with me before he passed," he said. Ben's brows furrowed. "An investment?" "Yes," the man replied, "a very significant one." Ben's heart began to beat faster, and over the years, that investment has grown. He reached into his briefcase calmly and pulled something out. Then he placed it gently on the table in front of Ben. "This," he said, "is your first return on investment." Ben looked down and froze. A check. He picked it up slowly. His eyes scanned the numbers once, then again, then a third time. His hands started trembling. $100 million? He whispered. His voice didn't even sound like his own. Mr. Adeyemi nodded calmly, like he had just handed him pure water.
"There'll be more," he added, but Ben wasn't hearing him anymore. Everything after that point became noise, blurred, distant. He nodded at intervals like he understood, but he didn't. The man eventually stood up, dropped his card on the table, and adjusted his jacket. "We'll be in touch," he said. And just like that, he left. Ben sat there, frozen, the check still in his hand. For a long time, he didn't move. Then suddenly, his body gave way. He slumped back into the chair like someone whose soul had briefly left his body. Hours later, Ben's eyes snapped open. He looked around wildly, breathing fast. "Wait," he muttered. He sat up quickly and looked at the table. The check was still there, exactly where he left it. He grabbed it, stared at it again. Still the same number, still very real. Ben jumped to his feet. "Jesus!" he shouted, then immediately looked around. "God, I beg, this one no be dream, oh." He pinched himself, hard. He winced. Okay, not a dream. He started pacing, running his hair through his hair, laughing like a man that had just escaped madness. $100 million, he said again, shaking his head. Ben, you are no longer a small boy again, oh." He looked at the check one more time and clutched it to his chest.
"If anybody wakes me up now, I will fight." Then suddenly he stopped. His eyes widened. "Tiwa!" He grabbed his phone immediately and started dialing. "Tiwa must hear this," he muttered excitedly. As the phone rang, he couldn't stop smiling. Life had just turned completely. But somewhere, beyond the excitement, beyond the sudden wealth, something else had just been set in motion, and Ben had no idea that this miracle came with its own consequences. Ben didn't waste time. Once the reality of the money settled even just a little, he moved, fast, decisively, like a man who had learned the hard way what hesitation could cost. Within days, he summoned the man who had leased the plantation. This time, Ben didn't sit like a struggling young man trying to negotiate survival. He sat like a man who knew exactly what he wanted. "I want my land back," he said calmly. The man studied him, then mentioned a price high enough to discourage him. But Ben didn't even blink. "Add more," Ben said. The man frowned. "More? I don't want stories tomorrow," Ben replied.
"I want everything clean, clear, final." By the time the deal was done, the compensation Ben gave him was so mouth-watering, the man kept shaking his head in disbelief even as he signed. When he left, he turned back once more. "You must really love that land," he said. Ben replied quietly, "It's not just land." That same evening, Ben went straight to Tiwa. No delay, no overthinking, no fear. She opened the door, and before she could even speak, Ben stepped forward. "Tiwa Lola," he said, his voice steady but full. "I don't want to do life without you." Her heart skipped. "I've lost too much already," he continued. "I'm not about to lose you because I was afraid." Then he brought out the ring. Simple, beautiful, intentional. "Marry me." Tiwa didn't hesitate, not this time, not after everything. Yes. And just like that, everything aligned. They didn't wait too long. Together, they moved to the city. A fresh start, a new chapter. And that was where Mr. Adeyemi truly stepped in, not just as a benefactor, but as a guide, a strategist, a man who had walked paths Ben was just stepping into. "Money can disappear as fast as it comes," he told Ben one evening.
"But structure builds empires." Ben listened, learned, applied. He invested wisely, diversified: agriculture, tech, logistics, real estate. Within a short time, the same boy who once did odd jobs to survive was now making serious money. Not small money, not manageable money, real money. Soon he had staff, a lot of staff, offices, assistants, managers, a system. Then came the media team, carefully curated, strategic. They built his image, his story, from nothing to something. It spread fast. Social media picked it up. Interviews followed, features, recognition. Ben became a name, not just in business circles, but everywhere. He didn't just grow wealth, he created opportunities, startups for young entrepreneurs, funding ideas, mentoring, giving people chances he never had. And just like that, Ben became the newest millionaire everyone was talking about. But the thing about success is, it travels far, further than you expect, further than you prepare for.
One morning, Ben was rushing out, suit sharp, phone in hand, assistant talking. "Sir, you are running late." "I know," he replied quickly. "Let's move." The gate opened, security in position, car ready, everything moving like clockwork. Then, Ben, he froze. A woman was walking toward him. His security reacted instantly. "Hey, you can't come close. Please," she said quickly, "just let me speak to him." Something about that voice hit him. Deep, familiar, unforgettable. Ben turned slowly, and the moment his eyes landed on her, everything else faded, because there was no mistake, No confusion, no doubt. It was Emma. Tell me, if you were Ben, would you even give Emma 5 minutes to speak, or would you tell the security to drive her away immediately? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Ben gestured for his security to let her through. She comes through and immediately hugs him.
Too sudden, too familiar. For a split second, he didn't even react. Then reality snapped back. He gently but firmly held her shoulders and pulled her away. "Emma," he said, trying to steady his voice, "what are you doing?" Her eyes were already glossy. "Please, Ben, just give me a moment. Just a few minutes. That's all I'm asking." Ben glanced at his watch, then at his security, then back at her. His face hardened slightly. Not cold, but controlled. "I have a full day ahead of me," he said. "I'm already late for an engagement." Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, beg more, but Ben didn't give her the chance. "Schedule a meeting with my peer. They'll fix a time." That was it. No softness, no history, just distance. Emma stood there, watching him as he got into his car and drove off like she was just another stranger trying to get his attention. The day swallowed Ben completely. Meetings, calls, introductions, decisions, faces, voices, money moving, deals closing. He barely had time to breathe, let alone think. But somewhere in between it all, a thought kept creeping in. What does Emma want? He pushed it aside again and again, but it kept coming back, louder each time. By the time he finally headed home, his body was tired, but his mind was restless. He needed peace. He needed Tiwa. He needed to tell her everything before it became something else. Because something about Emma showing up like that didn't sit right. A big shout out to Elizabeth watching from Zambia and Sheila watching from the USA. Thank you so much for watching and engaging with me in the comments. If you are watching right now, drop your name and where you are watching from. I would love to give you a shout out in my next video. Back to the story. The moment Ben stepped into the house, he knew something was wrong. Still, then he saw her, Tiwa, standing in the living room. Her eyes red, swollen, like she had been crying for hours. Ben's heart dropped instantly. "Tiwa," he called softly. She didn't move closer, didn't smile, didn't even blink. "If you are still in love with her," she said, her voice shaking, "why not just say it?" Ben froze. "What?" "If you're still in love with her," she continued, tears spilling freely now, "just tell me. I will leave." His chest tightened. "Tiwa, what are you talking about?" Her voice broke completely. "You don't have to humiliate me in front of the whole world." Confusion washed over him, deep, real. "What's going on?" he asked again, stepping closer. Tiwa didn't answer. She simply picked up her phone, walked up to him and handed it over. Ben looked down and his stomach dropped. It was a picture. Him and Emma, the exact moment she hugged him at the gate. Frozen, captured, posted. The caption, "Old flames never die." The comments were worse. "So this is the real woman. Men will always go back to their first love. I feel bad for the girlfriend though. Money has brought him back to where he belongs." Ben's grip tightened around the phone. "This is not..." But before he could finish, Tiwa had already turned away. She walked straight to the bedroom and slammed the door. "Tiwa!" Ben rushed after her, knocking immediately. "Tiwa, open the door. This is not what you think." Silence. "Tiwa, please," he begged, his voice softer now. "Just listen to me." Nothing. The night stretched long, painfully long. Ben didn't leave that door.
He knocked, he pleaded, he explained through the wood, but she didn't open, not once, not even a word, just silence. The next morning, Ben sat on the couch, exhausted, defeated. He hadn't slept. He stared at his phone for a long time before finally pressing record. His voice came out low, careful, honest. "Tiwa," he started, "please listen to me. I swear to you, that moment meant nothing." He exhaled. "She showed up unexpectedly. I didn't even know she was coming. She hugged me before I could react, and I pushed her away." His voice cracked slightly. "I didn't call her. I didn't invite her. I didn't ask for any of this."
A pause, heavy. "You are my woman," he continued softly. "You are my home. I chose you. I am still choosing you." His breathing slowed. "Please, don't let something like this destroy what we built." He ended the recording and sent it. Then he sat there, waiting, hoping, not knowing that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. Meanwhile, miles away, Emma sat in a dimly lit apartment, her phone glowing in her hands. Her lips curled slowly into a satisfied smile as she scrolled through the comments. The picture was perfect, the timing flawless, the angle intentional. She zoomed in slightly. The moment her arms were wrapped around Ben, his face caught mid-reaction. Anyone looking at it would think intimacy, history, something unfinished. Exactly what she wanted. She tapped her screen once more and checked her transaction history. Payment sent. The guy who took the shot had done his job well. "Good," she muttered under her breath. "Very good." She leaned back into the chair, crossing her legs slowly. The plan was already unfolding. She had already scheduled a meeting with Ben, through his PA, of course. 2 weeks. That was the earliest slot she could get.
But she didn't mind waiting. Not when she had already made her presence known. Not when she had already planted doubt in the one place it mattered most, his home. But what nobody knew, what nobody could even imagine, was that Emma wasn't back just for love. No, love had nothing to do with this, not anymore. Because somewhere along the line, Emma had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Back in America, things hadn't gone exactly as planned. Yes, she finished school. Yes, she got the exposure she wanted. But what she didn't get was patience. She was in a hurry, a desperate hurry to start earning, to live the life she had always dreamed of. So she cut corners, big ones. Before she was fully licensed, before she was legally cleared to practice on her own, Emma had already started taking clients. Quietly, illegally, under the radar. At first, it worked. Money came in, fast, easy, addictive. But then, mistakes started happening. One botched procedure, then another, until it wasn't something she could hide anymore. 10 botched plastic surgeries, 10 lives altered, 10 problems she couldn't fix. That was when everything began to crumble. Complaints, threats, investigations. She didn't wait for the storm to fully land. She ran, back to Nigeria, back to familiarity, back to opportunity. Her plan was simple. Set up something discreet in Lagos. Quiet clients, quiet money, no noise, no trace. Start again.
But then, she heard about Ben. Her Ben. The same boy she once discarded like he was nothing. Now, a name, a brand, money, power, influence. Emma smiled again, slower this time. "Life is funny," she whispered. Because suddenly, her plan had changed. Why struggle to rebuild from scratch when she could step into something already built? Why start small when she could go straight to the top? And Ben was the perfect entry point. Familiar, emotional, vulnerable. She tapped on his picture again. Her eyes hardened slightly. "You were useful once," she said softly. "You can be useful again."
She dropped the phone on the table and stood up, walking toward the mirror, staring at her reflection. Calm, calculated, dangerous. "Let's see how strong your new love really is," she murmured, because one thing was certain. Emma wasn't back to apologize. She was back to take, and this time she was not leaving empty-handed.
She was so sure of herself, so sure of the hold she thought she still had on Ben, her poor, useful Ben, now an eligible bachelor. But she was yet to discover Ben's plans. 2 weeks came faster than anyone expected. The day of the meeting arrived, and Emma was ready. She didn't just dress well, she dressed intentionally. Every detail was calculated. The hair, perfect. The outfit, elegant. Expensive looking without trying too hard. The kind of presence that demanded attention without asking for it.
When she stepped into Ben's company building, she paused for a second. Her eyes scanned everything. The polished floors, the quiet efficiency, the staff moving with purpose. Money, power, structure. She inhaled slowly. "So, this is where you are now," she murmured under her breath. And for a brief moment, she felt it. Regret. But it passed just as quickly as it came.
The receptionist directed her upstairs. When the door to Ben's office finally opened, Emma stepped in slowly, and for the first time, she was genuinely stunned. The office was massive, tastefully designed. Everything about it screamed control, success, authority. And there he was, Ben, seated behind the desk, calm, composed, untouchable. For a moment, neither of them spoke.
He told her to sit, and she did.
Then Emma's expression shifted, her lips trembled, and just like that, tears filled her eyes. "Ben," her voice broke, "I'm so sorry." The tears fell freely now, like a tap had been opened. She pressed her fingers to her face, shaking her head. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear I didn't." Ben didn't interrupt. He just watched her, quiet, still. Emma continued, her voice cracking more with each word. "I was under so much pressure. The school, the environment, everything was too much. I lost myself." She sniffed, wiping her tears quickly. "I said things I shouldn't have said. I pushed you away when I shouldn't have. But I came back, Ben," she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I came back for you." Silence, heavy. "I still love you," she whispered. Ben exhaled slowly, then reached into his drawer and brought out a handkerchief. He stood up and walked toward her, held it out. "Here," he said calmly. Emma took it, her fingers brushing his slightly. Hope flickered in her eyes. She wiped her tears quickly, watching him like she was waiting for something more. But Ben didn't give her that.
He went back to his seat. His expression was steady.
"Emma," he said plainly, "I forgive you." She blinked. "What?" "I forgive you," he repeated. "There are no hard feelings." For a second, relief washed over her face. But then, "But I've moved on." The words landed like a quiet explosion. Emma froze. "Moved on?" she echoed, her voice barely holding. Ben nodded. "I'm deeply committed to someone else." The reminder hit harder than she expected. "Ben, please," she started, her voice rising slightly. "Don't say that like it's final. We both know what we had. What we had is in the past," he cut in calmly. "People make mistakes. I made a mistake, but I'm here now." Her voice broke again. "We can fix this. We can start again. Please, just give me a chance." Ben didn't move, didn't soften, didn't bend. He simply pressed the button on the intercom. "Yes, sir." His PA's voice came through immediately. "Come in." Emma's heart dropped. "Ben, no, wait." The door opened. His PA stepped in professionally. The moment she entered, Ben stood up and walked out. Just like that. No hesitation, no second glance. Emma stood there, frozen, the tears on her face suddenly meaningless. The PA gave her a polite, professional smile. "The meeting is over," she said simply. Emma didn't move. "Please," the PA added, her tone still calm, but firmer now, "this way." Reality settled in, heavy, unforgiving. Slowly, Emma picked up her bag. Her fingers tightened around it, and without another word, she walked out. Escorted, dismissed, rejected. For the first time in a long time, Emma wasn't in control, and something about that didn't sit well with her at all.
If she couldn't reach Ben, then she would go through someone else. Tiwa. She dialed her number one evening, pacing her apartment. When Tiwa picked up, her voice was calm. "Hello? Tiwa, it's me." A pause. "I know." Emma exhaled quickly. "I need your help." Silence. "Tiwa, please. I've been trying to see Ben, but they won't let me in. You're the only one he respects. You're the only one that can talk to him." Tiwa didn't respond. So Emma continued. "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I know that now, but I need to fix it. I need my man back." That was when Tiwa spoke. Cold, controlled. "Your man?" Emma swallowed. "Yes." "Ben, please, Tiwa, help me talk to him. Help me explain. I know you can." There was a brief silence. Then, the call ended. Tiwa didn't block her. She didn't insult her. She didn't explain anything. She just cut the line.
And Emma, she had no idea. No idea that the friend she was begging was the very woman now sharing Ben's life. Because Ben and Tiwa had agreed on one thing from the beginning: privacy. No noise, no announcements, no unnecessary attention. Their love was not for the public. Until the day it couldn't be hidden anymore. Tiwa's traditional wedding. The village had never seen anything like it. From the entrance alone, you could tell this was not an ordinary celebration. Tall decorated gates wrapped in gold and ivory fabrics. Drummers lined up, beating rhythms that echoed across the entire community. Luxury cars stretched as far as the eye could see. Men in perfectly tailored isiago. Women in rich lace and sparkling asoebi that shimmered under the sun. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a statement. Inside, the compound was transformed. Canopies draped in gold and champagne tones. Crystal decorations catching the light. Waiters moving around with trays of expensive drinks. Everything screamed prestige, power, money. And then, Tiwa stepped out. The crowd shifted instantly. Heads turned, eyes widened. She was breathtaking. Dressed in a perfectly fitted traditional attire, beads resting elegantly on her neck, her makeup flawless, her presence commanding. She wasn't just a bride, she was royalty. The music rose and Tiwa began to dance, gracefully, confidently, happily. Cheers filled the air, money sprayed, laughter echoed. Everything was perfect. Until a figure stepped out of the crowd.
At first, nobody noticed because she was smiling, calm, walking with purpose. Emma moved closer, step by step, eyes locked on Tiwa. And then she slapped Tiwa. The sound cut through the music like a gunshot. Everything stopped. Before anyone could react, another slap. Gasps, screams, chaos.
Emma grabbed Tiwa violently, her face twisted with rage. "You think you're smart?" she screamed. "You think I wouldn't find out?" The crowd froze, confused, shocked. "You stole him from me," Emma shouted, her voice breaking with fury. "My man, my life, everything I built, you took it." Tiwa staggered slightly, holding her face.
Ben's security personnel moved in immediately, fast, sharp, trained. Within seconds, they were between Tiwa and Emma. "Hold her!" one of them barked. Emma struggled wildly, her wrapper loosening slightly as she tried to lunge forward again. "Leave me! She stole my life!" she screamed, her voice breaking, her eyes wild with desperation. But they held her firmly. She couldn't move, couldn't reach Tiwa again. The crowd watched in stunned silence, some whispering, some recording, some too shocked to even react. And then something unexpected happened.
Tiwa walked up to her, and before anyone could process what was happening, Tiwa slapped Emma. This slap was different. It was deliberate. It landed clean across Emma's face. The sound echoed. Emma froze completely, her eyes wide, her anger replaced with shock. Tiwa leaned in slightly, her voice low but firm. "Next time, control yourself." Then she stepped back. "Take her away." And just like that, Emma was dragged out. This time, without her saying another word. Silence hung in the air for a few seconds. Then slowly, life returned. The music picked up again.
The MC tried to lighten the mood. Guests adjusted. Smiles forced at first, then real again. Because one thing about celebration, it finds a way to continue. And that wedding, it went on, smoothly, beautifully, as if nothing had happened. Weeks later, Ben and Tiwa were on a plane, far away from the noise, far away from the drama. Destination wedding, Zambia. This time it was different, more private, more intentional, surrounded by a select few. The setting was breathtaking, nature at its finest. They exchanged vows again, this time with nothing but peace around them. And after the ceremony came the honeymoon. They stayed near the breathtaking Victoria Falls, one of the most beautiful places in the world. The sound of the waterfalls, the mist rising into the air, the endless stretch of nature. It felt unreal, like a dream they had finally stepped into. For quiet moments, they escaped to Kasabi, a perfect honeymoon spot, calm, serene, surrounded by wildlife and the soft rhythm of the river. No pressure, no expectations, just two people finally choosing each other without fear. Long walks, soft laughter, late-night conversations that stretched into the early hours. This time, nothing was rushed, nothing was forced. They simply existed together, and it was enough. But they didn't stop there. From Zambia, they flew to the United States. New cities, new experiences, luxury hotels, fine dining, shopping, exploring, enjoying the kind of life Ben once only dreamed about. From struggling to afford daily meals to living a life most people only saw on screens. And through it all, Tiwa was right there beside him. Not as a spectator, not as a passerby, but as his wife, his partner, his peace. Do you think Tiwa was wrong to date and marry her best friend's ex-boyfriend? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. In the end, Ben and Tiwa learned that love is not always about timing or perfection. It is about honesty, patience, and the courage to choose the right person even after chaos and mistakes. Emma's story also became a reminder that chasing everything can make you lose what truly matters. Because sometimes what you fight so hard to get is not what is meant for you. And what is meant for you will always find its way back, no matter how long it takes. If you enjoyed this story, then I am sure you enjoyed this story on your screen. Click to watch and I'll see you there.